Welcome back to Solomon's Porch with your host Jason,
And Shawn.
and we're here with an interesting round five. So this is not the typical round five that we do. Usually we pick a top five list of personal preferences, or least personal preferences, things like that. This particular round five is going to be based around a particular thing that happened from the last time we did the show to now. So there was a story that came out about Matt Chandler. He is the lead pastor of the Village Church, also known as TBC, down in Texas. So, in short, he was having a conversation with a woman that is not his wife in direct messaging. So, whether it's Facebook or Instagram Messenger, can't remember which one it is. And then apparently, the woman's husband knew about it and his wife knew about it, and they were okay with it. But a friend of the woman approached Matt Chandler in a parking lot one day, either before or after church or worship, and told him that she thought it was wrong. She felt uncomfortable with that happening. So he ended up, I guess, talking with his elder board, the other pastors at the church. They made a decision that he was going to step down from preaching and teaching for some personal development. And because he said it was unwise and unwise and something else that he did that. So not necessarily that it was like morally wrong, I guess I'd say, but so a lot of people are questioning, like, what really happened, yada yada yada. So we're not here to talk about that in particular. We're not trying to dissect the situation in terms of all of that, the baggage. I do want to look at the situation and look at five things that we can look or get out of this situation. One thing, five things we can pull from the situation. So we're going to be doing this kind of together. Shawn and I is going to just we'll list it, talk about it, move on. So the first thing is the fact that everybody's flawed and no pastor is immune to sin. Now, it's not to say that he was sinning in the situation, because again, we don't know the conversation. We don't have any information on it other than there was some, he said, there was too much familiarity and there was some joking going along. Now, some joking can be, coarse jokes that can be inappropriate to some degree, whether it's that's what she said, which I never do, ever, ever, ever. Just kidding. So we don't know. But in general, though, I think we have to remember, and this is more so church folk don't get shocked when you find out a pastor might have done something that wasn't the wisest thing to do. Like, they're sinful, they make mistakes. Now, there's a difference in there being an accidental thing and there being, like secretive and purposely knowing they're doing something wrong but continue doing it and hiding it, like some folks. But yeah, I mean, as far as this one, Shawn, any other thoughts or anything that you'd like to kind of bring to the table?
No, I have a really good summation for the whole thing. Something that I learned many years ago. But definitely with this point, we all fall short of the glory. The word tells us that. And so, that's part of that renewing ourselves daily. And so when we pray, we're also supposed to forgive others as we are forgiven. And again, we don't have details for this fella. So in this particular situation, maybe that's not necessary. I don't know. But in general, when we do have folks in our lives that, and especially pastors, and they misstep, or they just flat out really fall on their face, we're supposed to forgive, and we should help encourage them to renew themselves as well. This may be one of the first indicators for us to be able to help our pastoral staff see that maybe they need some time away from ministry. Maybe they need some time for reflection. Maybe it's just a long weekend. Maybe it's a retreat. Maybe it's a specific getaway. Maybe it's counseling.
Yeah. I know I read a book What's it called? Leading on Empty. It's called Leading on Empty by Wayne Corderio, however you say his name. And essentially, one of the points he made for pastors is that they need to take a legitimate sabbatical. It needs to be pre-planned once a year. They take a certain amount of time, like several weeks off,
Yeah.
and just go out and don't do ministry work the way they normally do throughout the week. And so they can kind of regroup, think about things, and kind of reevaluate their lives and kind of where they need to go next. So yeah, number four, and this is just for all of us, is that don't DM someone of the opposite sex. So this is one thing that it's kind of the Billy Graham rule that some people are against because they feel like women miss out on opportunities because they not allowed to be alone with pastors and this, that, and the yada yada yada. But I just think it's just wise not to have personal conversations with someone of the opposite sex that's not your spouse. Because I think, there is that sense of, okay, I'm getting very comfortable with them, getting very familiar with them. And some, again, like the kind of jokes that I might say around you or, uh, my wife that I might not say to the average woman because it might be a little more coarse or whatnot, whether I'm supposed to be telling coarse jokes or not. But the there's a sense of you're giving more of yourself and more of yourself and more of yourself in a personal way that you wouldn't do otherwise. And that's where the feelings start to kick in. You're having this long conversation with somebody, you're starting to give them more personal, intimate information, details. That's how that connection happens where the romanticness can pick up there. And so I just think it's wise. Men, I don't think men should counsel women. I don't think that should be a thing. I don't think women should counsel men. I just think that's a wisdom rule. I think having private text messages, conversations. I mean, there was so actually Cora from Purely Bachelorette. She like we were talking about something in regards to I think it was Business with Bordeaux, and I was still doing that show. And I was going to interview her and Camille Grant, who was her partner with that business. Uh, Ashley was like, "Hey," because I had sent her a text message. And I was like, "Hey, just trying to schedule things for the show." And she was like, "Hey, let me put Camille on this so we're not chit chatting just the two of us." And I was like, "Absolutely. More than happy. Wise. Good idea. Good idea." Because normally I would just be talking with the one person who I'm going to have on the show. And so, she was wise in that instance. So don't DM somebody or text message or call or be one-on-one by yourself with someone of the opposite sex without there being some sort of openness where other people can see what's going on because things can happen unintentionally. So you got any other advice on this one, Sean?
Yeah, so I would actually broaden that just a wee bit because when we're talking about temptation, we're talking about sin. Um, understandably that at least for the most part, I would assume that our listeners and viewers are heterosexual. However, if you are in a heterosexual relationship or marriage and you do feel a temptation toward a homosexual um, encounter or whatever, then obviously you don't want to go there either. So, not just don't DM someone of the opposite sex, but, you know, maybe I find that dude rather attractive. And, I've been toying around with this idea for a little while. So I'm going to flirt with the idea and start chatting with him. Just don't go there. Um, I'll go and get my summation for this actual whole thing. I went through. I used to work in the corporate world with Eastman Kodak, and been through lots of different types of trainings, and among them were HR trainings and sexual harassment trainings, stuff of that nature. And one of the key, just this is the thing to live by, is to stay above reproach. Reproach is an expression of disapproval or disappointment. Okay, that's what reproach means. So stay above that. don't give anybody any reason to be able to say anything about you in any kind of way. So whether it's texting, maybe it's just a car ride, your car's broke down, and Jason, your wife Sarah says, "Hey, I'll come by and pick you up. Is there anybody else going to be with you? Because I don't really want to be in the vehicle with her." And then somebody else at church see us driving down the road, and then before you know it, there's gossip going on saying that Shawn and Sarah are having an affair while Jason's out at work. I mean, how easy is that to happen? Except for the fact that your wife homeschools your daughters, and there's anyway. But
yeah,
people do things, so always stay above reproach, man. Don't give any leeway in there whatsoever, and then it's just not even a problem. So
yeah, no, I agree. That was a situation where I worked third shift, and there was a young lady and her husband were staying with us for a quick period of time, a couple months, and I was sleeping there in the daytime. Oh no, this is actually later on. Sorry, she was going to babysit for us, and I was like, well, I don't want to be home by myself with her because if anybody finds out, they can easily accuse me of having a relationship with her.
yeah.
They're like, oh, they were alone together. And so, yeah, that's just me being above, again, being above reproach. It's not even having the possibility of anybody saying anything. That's kind of my easy way to put it. Being above reproach, I don't even know what reproach means. So
I I just I just defined it. I said
what's
it's
reproach mean?
disappointment or disapproval.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so that's number 4. Number 3, as soon as something may be an issue, address it as soon as possible. So what I mean is, if you do notice that something might have been said, might have been taken away, or taken some kind of way, something might be happening, like go ahead, don't wait to see if it gets worse or to see if someone else brings it up. And this is kind of my rule of thumb. Like it can even be just a text message. So, and it's happened between us a lot where I would text something and I realize, oh crap, Shawn might have took it this way. I didn't mean it that way, and it could be taken the wrong way. Let me go ahead and clarify what I'm saying. And about 99.9% of the time, I think you always know what I was trying to say,
No,
and you understood.
I always take it the wrong way, and then I just think,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Anybody else usually knows what I meant by it, but I always like to clarify just in case, right? So even if it's something at work that one of my, I do warranty work at a home building company. So one of my homeowners, I accidentally text something, and I'm like, oh crap, that's not what I meant. Let me rephrase that. So I'll say, hey, just want to rephrase what I said and clarify. Um, but if something's happening and it might be something possibly, like, my opinion or my advice is to always go ahead and address it up front. So for example, if you have material in your home that could possibly be uh, looked at by the federal government, and whatever, I'm thinking about something political, but I mean, but if there's anything that can be taken a certain way, I go ahead and address it directly. I really don't know any other way to say it. But in this case, somebody came up to him and said, hey, I don't think this is right. I think you should stop doing this. And he went ahead and talked to his wife about it, his pastoral staff about it, instead of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to see if it got worse, trying to justify it, and then addressed it. I think what we should all do, expect somebody like calls us out or brings it to our attention. Hey, I think this might be an issue. You go ahead and address it right there. So, in order to do that, that brings us to our number 2, which is laying down our pride. Now, I think this is the number 1 issue for especially men. Never been a woman, never identified as one, so I don't know if it affects women differently or not. Not sure how pride impacts the female community.
I tried identifying as a woman last week for a few hours, and yeah, it was a lot easier to do. But yeah, no, it's definitely a struggle. I think even a lot of women struggle with it too.
Yeah. So it could have been one of the situations where, the woman comes up to him and says, "I think what you're doing is wrong." He could have easily been like, "I'm the pastor. I know the Bible better than you. I've been doing this for a long time. I know what I'm doing. I'm not stupid. You think I would do this if I were to think it were to cause an issue or situation?" And these are all the things that, I probably might have would have thought at the very get go. So I'm looking at myself in his shoes, like, how would I have been in the situation? What would have been what could have been some of my responses to it? And that might have been some of my responses to it. I don't know because I've never been in that situation, so I can't say what I would have felt. But I know in my personal life, there have been situations where someone might, try to check me in a way and be like, "Hey, just checking to make sure, blah, blah, blah." And I could feel like, you think I would actually do that or think that or feel that or, whatever. And that's a sense of pride. That's a sense of, you know, you might do that, but I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm too smart for that. I'm too wise for that. So don't assume that I'm going to be capable of falling into this particular type of issue, temptation, sin, just because you might feel that way. And I think that's a huge pride issue. And so, but yeah. Anything to add to that one, Sean, before we go into the last one?
Yep, last one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this one is one that for some, I don't know if this day and age there's a lot of it going on, but this is just being a submission to others and having accountability. So I kind of put them two together because I think when you have like an accountability partner, you almost submit to their ability to call you out. Does that make sense? However you want to phrase that, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, you got to have someone who can call you out. And I've said this before on the show. Someone who might see something going on in your life, and I'm like, "Hey, look, I'm seeing this. I'm hearing this. I'm feeling like this might be an issue. What's going on?" And I think a lot of times, if we feel like, and this is where the really the accountability portion comes in, is because I feel like if he were to have thought about it, he could have asked his pastoral staff, like, "Hey, what do you think? Is this something that I shouldn't be doing?" Before someone found out and called you out on it. And maybe the pastoral staff could have been like, "Hey, look, stop doing that immediately. Go ahead and snip it in the bud, get rid of it." And but the other good thing is too is whenever he did tell his pastoral staff about it, the other elders in the church, like they all agreed that he would step down from preaching and teaching. So he came underneath their authority over him, which I think, I've had a different theology about this before. I used to think like there should be one person at the top, everybody else under him. But the problem is when you do have that, you're not under anybody else's. You're not submitting to anybody else in the body,
Right.
um,
Well,
which can be problematic.
you lack the accountability, the
Yeah.
oversight committee, if you will. It's the sort of thing where I don't think that we utilize folks. And I say utilize folks. That sounds like it's somehow negative, but there are people in our lives that would be more than happy to be able to fill in to do an accountability role. And it may not be like some sort of long-term sort of thing, but definitely for a pastor for sure, to be able to say, hey, look, I just, maybe I struggle with this thing or that. And I just need, somebody there to be able to check on me, make sure that I'm still following things. I've had an accountability partner once in my life, and one of the key things is that it really needs to be somebody that you respect, because obviously if you don't respect them, it's going to be real easy to lie to them and just blow off the whole thing. But if you really truly respect them, there's no way that you really want to tell them, yeah, I messed up or whatever. Now, in this particular scenario, to be able to say, maybe he was legitimately counseling this woman in a very real and serious manner, and that's all that it was. But if it, again, honestly, it just goes back to one of those things where he really should have had the foresight to say, you know what, let me go ahead and check with my pastoral staff before I begin this counseling session and make sure that I'm on the right path here. Or maybe they've got some other suggestions because this person needs help, and maybe I've got personal experience that I can help them with, but maybe they've got some better way of being able to help me help her.
Yeah, yeah. And then have other women in the church who can guide and mentor the younger women. I mean, that's one of the things in the pastoral epistles is you have older women teaching the younger women, just like older men should be teaching the younger men. So have people there that are mature in the faith, women there mature in the faith that can guide and lead her in the way that doesn't require a male pastor. And I think that's just a wise thing to do. So, yeah, so 5 things to learn from Matt Chandler. Everyone's flawed. Don't DM, get too personal with anybody of the opposite sex. That's not your spouse. As soon as something might be becoming an issue, go ahead and address it. Nip it in the bud early. Lay down your pride, and then be in submission to others and have accountability. So, 5 things to learn from Matt Chandler. Hopefully, that's helpful to somebody out there. Let us know if there's anything else that you think could be learned from this scenario. I mean, I labeled it down to 5, but I'm sure there's other things. So if there is, put them in the comments or whatnot, and maybe it'd be helpful for somebody else out there watching it. So, yeah, man, we'll be back with another segment soon. Make sure you stay tuned.